beautiful, magical friend. Welcome to Walking in Magic. My name is Maria Alejandra. You can call me MA. And I do appreciate you being here, holding on to this thread of magic that we weave together in our present moment. I am in the midst of a cold, so I might be sniffling and pulling some tissues. And my hubby's also in the midst of a cold, which with ALS, as you can imagine, makes it that much more challenging to do life and to keep him as healthy as possible. So thank you for your wonderful, beautiful energy, intentions, and prayers sent our way. I always appreciate them. As I record this, we're a few days away from this very, very potent full moon in Taurus, full moon eclipse in Taurus, and a few days away from Samhain and All Hallows Eve. It is a time of year that is very much in this liminal realm. I wrote a beautiful short story. I'm calling it a liminal story because it really helps you dwell in the mystery a little bit. That's what I'm hoping to do with a lot of my writing and my poetry, is to help you exist in that space in between where the mystery is really ripe and potent. And this is a time when the veils are thin, as they say, which basically means that you might be feeling those witchy vibes of a more enhanced sense of connection with your intuition, with nature, with what I call liminal listening, which is like the listening in between the lines. Liminal basically means the space in between, right? A threshold or a space in between. So imagine it being the space in between the world of the known, of what we can touch and see, and the world of the unknown, which we feel and experience. And as witches, and perhaps you are a fellow witch or curious about the expression of witch in your life, this is where we do our work all the time. And in some points of the year, certainly, and in some points in our cycles, the energy is that much more enhanced. And so I wasn't quite planning on recording this today, but I'm glad it's happening. I've been sitting with the energy. I've also been beginning to sit with the tethers that are starting to show themselves, the threads of 2024. I feel like this full moon, it's because there's an initiatory portal aspect into, there's a reason why they call it the witch's new year. That's probably what I'm feeling into as well. Of course, we have the calendar year, and so we get to weave all these things together and make them work for us. This is creatrix consciousness, right? This is the taking the liminal, the mysterious, that in-betweenness, and bringing it to form in your day-to-day, which is the work that I love to do and explore and be in. So let's be in it together. By the way, if you want to grab yourself a cup of something warm, come on down. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share some things that I've written, some things that I wrote as a couple of years ago as I was deepening in my own understanding of how the experience of calling myself a witch and owning and declaring that energy, how that was coming through. I have a couple things that I found in my old journals about that, which are living, breathing testaments to my magic. And I also want to write something that I wrote for Samhain. I believe it definitely wasn't last year. It was probably the year before, 2021. So yeah, it's 2021, something I wrote for that. And I want to talk about the witch wound and the opportunity that I see with this lunation, this Taurus full moon, that really has to do the two words that have come time and time again as just flowering from within my soul are moon bloom, which is really interesting because blooming is not associated with this time of year. That is a spring, right? It's a spring energy. And yet, I think what we are blooming is what's blooming within you is your inner witch. It is your inner creatrix. It is your inner alchemist, perhaps your inner shaman, your medicine woman. There is an aspect of you that, and if you are called to this video and this work and this conversation, for sure there is an aspect of you that is blooming with this particular lunation. Give yourself time. If it's not something, like, we tend to be in such a rush around having to define things, describe things, make things make sense, right? Our logical mind wants to like make things make sense. Sometimes it just comes through as a feeling, as a nudge, as a whisper from within, like a little drop of dew on a leaf in the morning, and it's just so subtle, but it's there. And just listen, receive, write, whatever comes through for you that feels resonant, write it down, sit with it, ponder it, and just be with it. So, where do we begin? Let's take a breath, because what better way to begin than to just find a way to bring yourself into this moment in time. Taurus is a very earthly, grounded energy. And yet we are sitting in this very liminal space. By the way, I mentioned earlier that I wrote a story, a liminal story. I call it The Cave and the Lantern, or The Lantern and the Cave. I forget which one came first. You can find it in my Patreon. My Patreon has a tier that's free to follow. You can also join into one of the, to contribute. There's 3 tiers where you can contribute that cost money, where you get more extra stuff. But there is a follower thread that's new. And you can just go there, and I will be sharing the things that I write, poems, short stories, and just, so you can find it there. And it is a story that helps you find the meaning within the magic and the mystery of Scorpio season, which is where we are. I wrote it right as Scorpio season energy was, meeting us at that threshold. And Scorpio is the archetype. It's this like very dark, moist cave. I often describe it to clients that are working with this energy or have this energy present as this cave that you feel very comfortable in. For some of them, it shows like a cave, like, above ground. And for some, it shows like a cave underwater, depending on other transits that you might have going on, or other planets, or where you are in your sort of like space. But this is a cave where we are all entering, regardless of which specific Scorpio placements you have. We are in this energy of going within and having a lot of opportunity for growth in solitude. The work that we do when we're walking in magic, and when we are opening ourselves up to the truth of our power, our inner power, it has a lot to do with holding paradoxes, with holding dualities. And holding shadow and light is one of the best ways that we can describe it. We can also describe it as holding joy and pain. So when we are able to dwell in a space where you're not buffeted one way or the other into, joy and pain and back again. And this is very natural, by the way. It's a very normal response for us to be. But we are constantly shifting gears and trying to bring ourselves from a place of like pain and sorrow and loneliness, even like solitude, that space of like, into joy, happiness via distractions. The distractions keep us from really dwelling in the mystery and learning what we need to learn. Joy is a frequency that we can hold, I believe, once we have an understanding of pain. And the good news is you're human. So you know pain. You know pain within yourself and your life. You've experienced. You've had it in your own heart. You've experienced it through others. You've held space for others through their pain. And my goodness, in the world around us, are we not experiencing pain all the time? So joy and pain are not opposites. They are lying on the same spectrum. And the most profound joy, which is also a space of freedom, a space of serenity, a space of understanding who you are, is accessible when we've been able to dwell in the pain, I want to walk cautiously through this because dwelling in pain is an experience that is very unique to each of us. If you are going through and experiencing a lot of mental distress, I ask you to reach out for help and support. I do too. I have a history of anxiety and depression, so there is a element of solitude that is, not that is very detrimental, obviously, to our lives, and where we need to reach out for help and support in that space. The solitude I'm talking about is the one where you can hold yourself without the noise, the cacophony. I love that word. It's like the noise and all the trappings and all of the stuff, perspectives constantly happening around us that distract us from who you are. It's either distracting us because it's pulling us away, or we feel so untethered and unsafe in that solitary, shadowy place that we ourselves seek out distractions. We all do it. I do it myself. And what I do is I just try as much as possible to remain conscious and aware of when I'm doing it. And I give myself a lot of grace. I try to. And I seek to just have moments of contemplation when I can breathe into and, again, dwell in that space without having to like kick myself out of it. So I'll ask myself questions like, oh, what's trying to be revealed here? Why am I experiencing this? This is interesting. I look at it with curiosity. Sometimes like almost like a third person perspective. Not because I detach myself from what I'm experiencing, but because it's a good way to look at yourself and hold yourself and then be present to it. So the more we're able to be present with that energy, and I keep going into this word solitude because Scorpio can be a very solitary energy, because in your solitude is where your ultimate power lies. The ultimate power lies in you knowing who you are at your core, no matter what is happening around you. So the invitation to come into that cave and just sit and go through the profound healing work is potent right now. So if you're feeling it, say, yes, welcome it in, and do what you can to sit in it, to be with it. This brings me very naturally to the idea of the witch wound. And there are so many takes and perspectives on this. My curiosity around the witch wound has to do with the claiming of the word witch as ultimately a very, what I believe is an empowering state to be as a woman, as a man, as a person. Naturally, I am inclined to support the divine feminine expression and women in understanding their power and not minimizing their power. So a lot of my languaging will have to, will naturally kind of gravitate around that. I am interested in elevating this understanding of what I call creatrix consciousness, this living, breathing, flowing understanding that you have within yourself, that you are at the center of this universe that you create. And that place gives us both power, it gives us perspective, and it gives us a sense of responsibility, because you are no longer dictated by the influences around you. Rather, you understand that you are responding to the influences around you, but always from a point of your own inner power. And this is a beautiful, lifelong, sometimes very challenging journey. I want to read something I wrote again as I was really sitting into this reclamation of the word witch. Which. Okay. First, I want to write something I wrote on October 20th, 2021. Now, again, notice the time, right? This is a natural time when we are drawn to like, what is this? Also, for me, I have the added layer that I am present to in terms of having become a mother at this time of year. My son was born October 21st. He just celebrated his 7th birthday. And so aside from that, this is a natural time of my own rebirth that happened when he was born, and that new version of me took hold. But aside from the magic that is Skylar in my life, this is a time of me understanding and reclaiming witch and having that conversation with others. October 20th, 2021, Rebirth is the title. I'm moving through a period of even deeper transformation. They never end, of course. Those doing the work will know exactly what I mean. These moments of metamorphosis will emerge, but they are mere opportunities until you willingly walk through the portal. In a world where everything is truly uncertain, I find time and time again that only one thing remains steadfast: the magic. Like a mysterious golden thread woven through your days, through the love, through the pain, while sitting in front of your altar or at the grocery store, ever present, ever pulsing, beckoning you to come home. The magic will transform you. It will turn you inside out. It will demand that everything that is not you falls away and crumbles. Then you look behind you, and there's this heap of crumpled old stuff that doesn't fit anymore. And sometimes all we want to do is pick it back up because it feels familiar. But the magic says, no, sweet one, onward, onward. And boy, does this describe the place we're in right now. And the idea that when we go through these periods of transformation, metamorphosis, which have gotten they've clicked up speed as we are entering what will be a much faster paced, and 2024 has a whole different energy signature, as all years do. But there's a lot of forward momentum coming through in 2024. So this time of year is this moment when we sit in between this corridor of old self, next self. I'm not even going to call it new self, because there's this idea that you have to kind of go out there and get your new self. It's you already. It's you shedding the next layer. So it's an old self, next self. She's waiting in the wings. They are right there. But you might be in between. Imagine, if you will, oh my God, the visual I'm getting now is that you were on the stage before as your former self, like an actual theater stage. You were on the theater stage as your former self, and you've gone into the theater wings, you've gone backstage. You've taken your old costume off, and now you've donned a whole new costume you have not worn before. Maybe it was something you've been looking at for a while, and you were like, oh, I'm almost ready to put that on. And at first it feels unfamiliar, and you might look at the old costume and go, no, but that's the one I know. That's the one that fits well. But this other costume is pick me, you're ready for me. So you put it on, and we are waiting in the wings to come onto the stage, transformed. Same self, with a new understanding of who you are, a deepening of who you are, more of a clear reclamation of your truth. This ties us back to the witch wound and the idea that there's so much of us that has been cast off from living its full expression through you, out of old traumas, the ways that women have been treated historically, the ways that we've been, when you look sort of and connect the dots between, okay, witch wound and the one that, many of us can resonate with. It's witches being burned at the stake, Salem witch trials, etc., etc. This very methodical, it's these men went on a mission to create and generate this incredible fear around these women who they did not understand and were afraid would overtake them in some way in their power. So any woman who moved about life healing, helping, transforming, supporting, caring, calling in the magic of the earth, calling in the magic of the cosmos, were cast off, ostracized, burned, murdered, cut off, attempted to be cut off from the power. And they paid a very, very heavy price. That causes that all of that very ancestral trauma and the what happens to women when they speak up, when they are in their power, when they simply move about the world knowing who they are. It causes us to put up defenses. And all the defenses that we've put up, like calluses meant to cover up this wound, also disconnect us from our own innate source of power. It feels unsafe to tap into it. We may not even understand why. You may be drawn to the life of working with magic, working with the earth, of, my goodness, the audacity of calling yourself a witch. A witch is a transformer. A witch is a woman who decides and chooses to dwell in the wisdom of lived experiences, who wants to understand the place in between what we know and what we don't know. And, excuse me, having that, again, the audacity of calling yourself that, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily have to be what you call yourself, but perhaps there is a facet of you, a facet of your being that connects directly with that experience of being a woman who owns and understands her power, and also owns and understands how very imperfect she is, and how there is constant, beautiful, wise work to be done to bring herself into a space where she connects with cycles and with nature and with others in a way that continues to heal her. In many ways, a witch is, it's this ultimate space of power and this ultimate space of humility. By the way, today I love the etymology of words, that humble humility comes from the word humus, Humus, which in Greek meant soil. The grounded connection that we have, that is the ultimate power, which connects us right back into this full moon in Taurus while the sun hangs out in Scorpio. This axis is the axis of birth and death. It's the axis of earth and the worms, of composting, of transformation. This is the axis of the witch, of the shaman, of the medicine woman, of the alchemist, of she who walks in between worlds. And we do it in our day-to-day lives. As I often like to remind my clients, you are the altar and your life is the ritual. And more, the invitation and the understanding and the leaning into seeing your entire life and your breath as a breath of magic and movement is where we are seeking to be, not have it be in compartmentalized spaces or in the symbolic witch closet, where that's where I put my magical self. There's other threads here connected to how we have cast off our childlike sense of innocence, imagination, joy, belief, the idea that we have to leave all those aspects of us in childhood because they don't serve an adult who is responsible, who can show up for the world. We were taught to leave all that stuff there. That's like play and imagination. And the reclamation of that is also part of what is happening with us. and where we've also put our defenses up because we don't want to seem like we don't have it together, right? And so thinking back, I want you to thinking at when we started off this beautiful video, winding path of a journey, this idea of moon bloom, which is that phrase that keeps coming up for me. How are you blooming with this full moon in Taurus? Taurus is the sign, along with Libra, Taurus is about Venus, the earth, the divinely feminine, fertile, receptive quality that we all have within us. That abundance, that connection to your hands in the soil, that connection to the plants, to the flowers, to the acorns. I collected a bunch of acorns yesterday and I'm in the middle of learning how to sprout them. If you have any tips, put them in the comments. All of that is how we work our magic, how we honor the world around us, how we connect with the pulse of energy that is always running through all the things. Again, whether you're sitting in front of your altar in a space of ritual and ceremony, or you are walking around Target and you are connecting to the threads of what exists within you that wants to radiate out into the world, without the distractions that keep you from that tender, tender soft spot that is ultimately oh so magical. I have something else I want to read to you, share. Let me see when I can find it here. Where are you? I'll find it soon enough. In the meantime, just take a breath. We don't have to rush through life. I know we have a lot of stuff to do. I do too, trust me. But what I'm looking for is a definition that I wrote of a witch, which I love. Which. Okay, here we go. This was written also in 2021, and this was the time of I always had this natural inclination to the word witch, but this was my birth moment, my true witch birthday. What is a witch? She is a woman who doesn't conform. She is one who transforms, both earthly and celestial. She revels in tune with nature and the cycles of life. A mystic, an alchemist, a weaver, a creatrix. Through studying her craft, she deepens both connection and trust. She dwells in the liminal space between mastery and mystery. She is self-initiated, self-proclaimed. She is powerful. She is dangerous. She is humble. She is wise. She is maiden. She is mother. She is crone. And I wrote here, because after I wrote that, I remember seeing in the backyard, and also for some personal context, my husband was diagnosed with ALS May 2020. And, we've already been living under the shadow of this disease for 1.5 years at this point, October 2021. And I was in the midst of really transforming because I'd continued to work and do the coaching work that I was doing, but I could feel it really shifting because there was a lot of space that wanted to be opened up for me to, at that point, I was already fully focused on my husband's care, but the more he needed my care, I knew that 2022 was going to be a very different year energetically for us, and a year of a lot of initiation for me and deep transformation. And that is the year where I did multiple plant medicine journeys. We did them together. We did a lot of work that was just calling us forth, and it was it was a year of really dwelling in this liminal in-between space and seeing and experiencing things that were so profoundly out of this world, wildly magical in the very real life that we were living, that I'm still processing and integrating. So it's like my soul knew you're about to walk yourself through something that is going to change drastically the way you see yourself and the way you see the world. And the reclamation of the word witch, for me, was a pivotal moment in time for that. This idea also that you are self-initiated as a witch. Witches can work as solitary witches, or you can work in a coven. Both are beautiful. There's lots of threads of understanding, and I hold a lot of respect for everybody's expression, for lineages of witches. So that is a whole other space of, again, where I honor and really respect. And also when it comes to your own calling towards that, it is a personal pilgrimage that will lead you time and time again through the metamorphosis and the transformation and the shedding and the literally vomiting up of everything that you are not in favor of who you are becoming. And as a witch, we understand that the process of transformation and becoming is never ending. You bloom and you shed, and you bloom and you shed, and you bloom and you shed, and then you bloom and you shed again. On and on and on and on and on it goes. It really is like a spiral. And so it is not to be taken lightly. And also, it is to be taken in the most, with a sense of opportunity and optimism, to choose to begin to walk down that path. And when you're curious, leaning into what I call leaning into the cosmic bonfire, which is for me the world and sort of the ethos that I long to create and radiate out, so that other incredible women are drawn to work together in that space, which is what I do in Walking in Magic, and what I want to do via my emails, and what I want to do via my workshops and moon gatherings and all that. It is basically this swirling of energy and calling us in so that we can work together and dwell in the in-between spaces that then serve as reinforcement for our everyday lives. When you cultivate your magic in that deep space, then everything else begins to permeate. It grows like this little vine that just finds its way through the nooks and crannies of your life. And it requires a lot of trust and time so that your powers grow, and grow they will. Trust me. You will begin to feel yourself so much more connected while still dwelling in the questions and the uncertainty and everything that comes from walking this path as just human beings. This idea, as I wrote here, about a witch being someone who dwells in the spaces of both the mystery and the mastery. The mystery is the unknown, and the mastery is, that which you do with your wisdom. Many of you might be looking to create mastery in some area of your lives. Perhaps a project, perhaps art, perhaps writing, perhaps a business. Perhaps you are a doctor, a lawyer. I've coached all of them. I've coached the women that are super witchy and have that kind of vibe and do that kind of business. I've coached authors. I've coached doctors. I've coached lawyers. I've coached women creating businesses in many different varieties and styles. And we all have this thread that connects us. And it's basically this thing that goes, there's just something more. There's something here in between the lines that I've been given. You've been given a script. There's something written in between those lines that is just for you, almost like invisible ink. But then you can grab your symbolic magic wand and reveal that invisible ink. Isn't that a beautiful image? So when I wrote this, What is a Witch, which was October, 14th, 2021, at the end of it, I wrote here in a little side note, suddenly I started smelling roses. There were no roses around me at the time, 0. But I started smelling roses. I remember it now. And it felt like one of those moments of just validation, connection, mystery, delight. I remember sitting there and going, wow. And just sitting with, again, the intuitive nudges, the feelings, the symbols that come and go, that ebb and flow, the whispers of your soul, that is a magnificent art form in itself. And living like that, that's what I call living. And it requires that sitting in that space. How do we begin to sit in that space? At first, the idea of meditation or of pondering or of just sitting in this liminal space are great vehicles. Even in meditation, sometimes when we're doing a guided journey and someone is guiding us through this sort of liminal understanding, and when I do my closed eye meditations, which are really more like activations, because you are, it's like I'm telling a story that then your soul can walk through and pick up other things along the way. That is putting your soul self in sort of an active state of co-creating with you, where then you'll pick up things along the way that you can bring into your life. We can always do that together in the spaces that I create, and you can do that yourself. Divination tools are also a wonderful way to pick up, to allow yourself to dwell in the space of symbols and the archetypes that are showing up for you. Tarot cards are magnificent for that. To work with archetypes, to work with symbols, to allow your logical mind the opportunity to park itself long enough so that you're not always having to question and bring meaning to all the things, because, and I've been describing, our mind, I've been describing it like this for so many years, and it continues to feel very true. Your mind is like a computer that is basically working with the input that it is getting. And so, you get this input in, the output is based on what's kind of available in your day-to-day life. What we do when we move into a space of more of a liminal conversation, which, by the way, you've been in one for the past 37 minutes if you've been watching. Thank you for being here. Is your logical mind, and I always aim to give you bits and pieces for your mind to grab, because I understand how important it is to have a practical approach to these things. Otherwise, we're just flying off into the ether and then nothing happens. We're like, wah. Creatrix consciousness wants to be here in this moment, wants to have all of that, and also like, okay, what do I do with this? That's important as well. But in these liminal spaces and with divination tools and just sitting in nature, sitting in your thoughts, writing out your thoughts, but just like stream of consciousness, those are the portals that we open that bring in new input, the one that's not just available, that we're constantly responding to, and all the decisions that we make, the thousands and thousands of decisions that we make every day. It's like we're always having this transactional conversation between the world around us, and there's all these little threads that want to come through in other ways. And unless we pause and like soften our gaze and just widen a little bit and go, oh, that's the something more. That's where you find I feel like there's something more to my life. That's where it is. Because we've been programmed in a certain way. And so getting out of that programming and into more of that open space of imagination and play is what your soul is craving. To then take those threads, create something with them, and bring them into form, or just be in that space of play, which again, we've been told that is, you need to outgrow that. So perhaps you were born a witchling child who just wanted to revel in nature and speak with the moon and believe in unicorns and wear fairy wings and make potions and understand that you were affecting the world around you in some way. And then sure enough, the adults, many of them well-meaning, who did not have the opportunity, because we're also healing a lot of that ancestral lack of opportunity to access this. Like, we are sitting in a place of a lot of opportunity and privilege to be able to do this and have these conversations. We're healing a lot of that on behalf of our ancestors. But we were told, no, you leave that stuff in your childhood. Some of us very early on, some of us had the opportunity to maybe have it linger on a little bit longer, but inevitably there came this point where you could not carry that forward because just it's not responsible. How will you become a productive member of society if you continue to believe in fairy stories? But fairy stories and mythology and stories themselves and imagination hold all of the archetypes and the collective information that our soul is yearning to use in our very lives. So that it's like this beautiful like door in, if your mind and your soul is like dwelling in this house, there's this room that maybe has been like, do not enter. You left this in your childhood. Leave that over there. And when we do enter that room, which is similar to the experience of when you have the audacity to connect with this idea of, I am a witch, we feel like we are doing something wrong. We feel like we are sort of like have to hide around. Like, oh my God, I'm going to get caught. I'm going to get caught. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to think this is silly. They're going to look at me and roll their eyes and go, really? And it keeps calling us back. And there's this disconnect between what we know feels so true for us, but then what the world around us wants us to feel is true for us. And in that disconnect, right there, that like, that's where we get to heal that. Like, connect those threads together. Connect those threads together and see where that like happened that got completely derailed. And that's a lot of the work that we're doing. The work that, again, I see as this beautiful portal during this lunation in Taurus. Working with the energy of Venus, of understanding your sense of worth and your connection to the earth, that you can bloom in a new way. The last thing that I will do today is read something that I wrote for Samhain. Again, this was October 2021. It starts with a quote. It says, from Linda Hogan, walking, I am listening to a deeper way. Suddenly, all my ancestors are behind me. Be still, they say. Watch and listen. You are the result of the love of thousands. Beautiful. And I wrote, here's to what is ending and what is beginning. Here's to liminal spaces. Here's to the sacred void where all things are possible. Here's to taking off the masks. Here's to unbecoming who we are not. Here's to the wisdom of our ancestors whispering in our ears. Here's to the darkness and the light. Blessings upon blessings. And I finalized it with another quote by Danielle Barlow. On Samhain's dark and potent night, stoke the fire, fierce and bright. Let ancestral dreams take flight, and hear your bone song by its light. And with that, I conclude this transmission. I send you love, moon dust, and I hope that you continue walking in your magic, in your light, in your courage, in your questions, in your uncertainty, in your curiosity. Allow yourself to be a child again, as many moments as you can. Allow yourself to connect with the earth. Allow yourself to shed, and allow yourself to bloom with this incredibly brilliant full moon. Be well, my friends. I'll see you next time. Adios.